Welcome everyone to this Borderless Engineering session. We've got a slightly unusual panel discussion. That doesn't mean the folk are unusual. It's just the topic is a bit unusual because it's probably one of the first times where we as Monstarlab have worked with a national commissioner or policy-making organization to do some pretty cool stuff that intersects the boundaries of policy making within the National Health Service in England and Wales, but also adds our digital expertise and then brings various domain experts together to create a center of excellence, which is focused more on learning and development. So I have three fabulous panelists with me today. They'll each introduce themselves when it's their turn. Very briefly, I have Victoria from NHS England, Alex, who's also from NHS England, and Nacho, you all know, should know, for Monstarlab. So I'm going to hand over to Victoria first, who's just going to orientate us a little bit and tell us about the project. Victoria, welcome, and over to you. And please tell everyone who you are first.
Brilliant. Thanks, Suki. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak today. Hopefully everybody can see my slides okay. So do shout if you can't. As Suki said, I'm Victoria Cornelius. I'm Senior Lead for Analytics Engagement here at NHS England. And I wanted to start today with a little bit of background about me, but in turn setting the landscape of the NHS. So I've worked in primary care, with primary care trusts on performance metrics, working closely with GP practices on their commissioning models, in secondary care, so at a provider trust working with waiting list management data, also in the research world at National Institute for Health Research, so heading up their information management team, and now with NHS England, with much of my time spent in population health management. And what do I mean by that? So I've been working with and creating the large linked person level data set we have pulled together and the nationally applied segmentation model. So I've got experience of working across the complex world that is the NHS, and it can quite often feel quite a disparate landscape and often very siloed. And that's without even mentioning the other organisations that were part of this story, so mental health, social care, and also other organisations which are coming together now with the implementation of the integrated care systems. And that's an initiative to bring the jigsaw together more. But how do these existing organisations, or indeed working as these new collaboratives, make the key decisions that they need to make around value for money, understanding the population that they serve, improving the health of that population, and indeed their health outcomes? And for me, and I think for many of us, it always comes back to the data and the analysis. But what does that landscape look like? And here you've got some kind of key phrases, but they all come out of the Goldacre report or the data strategy, and they all tell us that we've got a large community. However, there's still lots of manual processing going on in terms of the data processing, but also the analysis. So there's still lots of Excel spreadsheets and manual processing. However, there are pockets absolutely of world-class excellence. So we really need to think about how can we unleash that enormous potential that is there. And that takes us on to the conversations today around professionalisation, clear career paths, bringing data and analytics out of that back office function, ensuring they're embedded throughout the decision-making process. And something else around equipping our workforce and ensuring they've got the opportunities to be equipped with 21st century skills. And so was born our vision here, which we're here to talk about today, which is establishing a population health data analytics centre of excellence. And this is all about sharing of training, best practices, research, and support resources. In all, being that kind of one-stop shop for all health and care professionals to develop and continually upscale their expertise in data analytics, but specifically to population health. So where are we up to on realising this vision? Well, firstly, we had to think about...
Victoria, sorry, can I just interrupt? Are your slides moving?
They are.
I don't think...
They should be for me. They are they not?
Now they are, for me, certainly. Nacho, are they moving for you as well?
Yeah, now they are.
Yeah, now they are, Victoria. Carry on, sorry.
No problem. Are you on the collaboration slide?
Yes, we are.
Perfect, thank you. So we first of all had to think about giving this Centre of Excellence a home and bringing everyone in. And we wanted representation from all the organisations I've just spoken about. We had to make sure we were aligning to policy that was already out there. And we wanted to benefit from the strategic commercial partners. We have to baseline what was already offered in this space, where and how, and engaging with all early and regularly. So we decided the best home for this would be in Analyst X, and I think Alex is going to talk us a little bit more about that broader initiative later. But it's a large, engaged community. We've got the benefit of the relationship with the strategic partners, and it's a space already for sharing and learning. So it was the obvious choice for us that this would be the natural kind of home for this Centre of Excellence. So once we've got all the right people, the right heads together, we could shape a proposed framework, which our intention is that it will become the curriculum in this space. And what you're seeing here, hopefully the slides have moved on this time, is that curriculum, that proposed framework.
Sorry, Victoria, they haven't.
They haven't. Maybe, thank you for keeping me.
Now they have.
Maybe there's just a delay in my my lovely network. Hopefully you can now see that framework, or indeed the curriculum. And I wanted to just talk you through this because there's quite a lot of information on here, but this is kind of so you can see it in one space. It might not necessarily be how a user would navigate around the curriculum or the framework, but it's got 3 dimensions, which I'll just walk you through now. And if we can start with the columns, which are the headers across the top, you've got, these are the learning families, and these are already quite well entrenched and used successfully within Analyst X. And indeed, there's actually a nice little quiz you can take if you're not quite sure which kind of persona you fit under, and it'll give you the results. But essentially, they're to take a helicopter view on job titles, to be future-proof to changes in these, and be a little bit more dynamic. So we start with, which I think is quite different to a lot of learning curriculum seen previously, with the consumer. And this is really to reflect the end-to-end and the need for us all to be good engagers, good requesters, and good consumers of the data analytics that are available to us. We've also got the creators there, who are the ones that create the analytical assets. We've got the editors who work with the base data and understand if that needs to change, or indeed the processes. We've got the storyteller, who are your kind of middle people who kind of translate that data analytics into intelligence and insights for the consumers. And then we've got your wranglers who are working with the tooling and the platforms. Your second dimension of this curriculum are the levels, and they're the rows that you can see within this table. And level 1, kind of your beginner, entry level, kind of concepts and topics, taking you right to level 4, which is kind of your more immersive and enhanced content at the top. And then lastly, you've got the colour coding, which is the legend across the bottom, and that links to the population health management implementation cycle. So essentially, these 3 dimensions of a curriculum mean no matter where you're entering this curriculum from, there's a door for you. And so if you were quite well within the population health management world already, you can absolutely navigate from the implementation cycle. But you might say, I'm actually this kind of persona, and therefore I want to work up that column of the learning material. But it's not just for the individual. We've created this curriculum and framework so it can be used across a team, or indeed across a system, so you can see how do I have the right skills to be able to ensure that we can do end-to-end population health data analytics. So it can help start to identify the gaps and hopefully help with resourcing. And the intention is a user would click on one of these boxes and they'd be presented with a suite of learning material. And that might be self-service, how-to guides, online explainer videos, but it might be an accredited course. And you'll see these boxes, hopefully you can kind of read these clearly on here. They vary from subject matter topics, but also to the very technical. And we believe this is quite novel in this space to bring those 2 things together on the one axis. As you'd expect with the creation of anything like this, it's gone through quite a few iterations, but we've got to a place now where we can ensure we've got the handshake from the more generic learning material that sits on the Analytics Learning Exchange on Analyst X to the more policy aspects through the implementation cycle. We've gone through a mapping exercise next. So this takes us back to understanding the baseline. Now we've got this curriculum, what is currently out there that should and could be pointed to on day 1 under each of these boxes? After all, this is not about creating more work, duplicating great offerings that are already in existence, but bringing them together. And so we've got, I think, around 120 offerings so far across 40 organisations, which will underpin this whole curriculum. We did identify one gap, interestingly, for us in the financial and actuarial costing. And so we've reached out to central government and trying to fill that gap with some material that they're creating for us. So this provides us with great collateral for us, but also our strategic partners, so we can see where the market perhaps is already more saturated, but indeed identify the gaps and indeed the opportunities of how we could fulfill those gaps. And the intention is this curriculum will be fairly stable in its existence, just with like a university degree. You won't want it changing week on week. That could be quite disruptive. Obviously, we will ensure it's continually fit for purpose. And we're thinking for a day 2 kind of thing around having an accredited group who may look to endorse some of the material that we've got on there. I say day 2 because day 1 is the launch date is the 17th of October, which is scarily close now. And so if the launch date is the 17th of October, our heads then turn to how do we make sure people actually come and use this curriculum? How do we make sure they use and engage and it actually makes a difference? Just going to make sure we move on by doing that. And that takes us to our key principles. Hopefully those are coming up now. And these are around developing a space which encourages active learning, participation by the users, focusing on content to address the current but also future needs within health and care, allowing users to structure their learning according to their own personal needs and career goals, offer training for everyone, and that comes back to the core principles of population health management. So it's got to be for everybody, for all, and this training will be for everyone. Present subject matter in a way that integrates real-world application within the training offering itself. So you're not leaving it for the user or the trainer to go back to their desk and think, how do I apply that learning? That kind of actioned learning can happen within the learning offering itself. Creating a community of professionals to come together, collaborate and share. And providing incentivisation. And we want to do that through quite novel concepts to the NHS world. So perhaps NFTs, and providing opportunities to engage and work with commercial organisations, which is an opportunity they may never have otherwise. So we believe this to be a world first, and now the next part of the story and the success will be from the 17th of October. So thank you for listening today, and please watch this space. But I think I'll open the floor to some questions and other panel members. Thanks, Suki.
Victoria, thank you very much for that. I know there'll be colleagues on the Monstarlab front who will be wondering why the huge emphasis on nuancing data and analytics for population health. Most of you have heard me talk about population health as the next way, the next paradigm shift in which we're going to operate in the healthcare space, wherever you are in the world. Essentially, it means thinking about the person as a whole, not just thinking about them when they are injured and go to the hospital and become a metric. And one of the things we were very keen on was to make sure that this doesn't become a vanilla data and analytics program, because we have anything between 12 to 15,000 analysts within the NHS. The word analyst used very loosely here. And then one of our challenges is if you just provide generic material on data and analytics, nobody really engages with it. And then digital data and analytics becomes a thing on the side, which doesn't really help with the transformation and then making it part of the whole process of moving health from where it is now to healthcare where it needs to get to. So, Victoria, my first question to you, before I hand over to the other panelists, and then we'll open up to the floor, is, what are some of the key lessons you have learned in getting this far with the project?
Gosh, lots, Suki. I think one is to take them back to that collaboration. So engaging early with everyone, and not just being the kind of the hub and spoke, but I mean kind of getting all of the stakeholders together so they can share and collaborate and all have a comment, a chance to comment and contribute. But I think one of the key lessons I just wanted to touch on here today was around, you can name anything. You can name this the Centre of Excellence, you can name something a community, but how does it become that? And so some of our thinking is around, actually, we've got a great curriculum here. That's absolutely great. But how do we make sure people are engaging? And this becomes, like I say, a community and indeed a centre of excellence. And so some of our thinking around is that incentivization piece, but also something that we're doing alongside the launch date is a weekly schedule of events. And that will be where some of the more kind of novel content will come in. And it might be that we see that from our stats within the wider analytics is that a lot of people engage with the site first thing on a Monday, and then it kind of tails off towards the end of the week. But actually, if we're making sure there's some new content, something new to engage with every week that they engage with the site, I think it will ensure that they continually come back, but they're having the opportunity to work with each other and collaborate and see the benefit of doing so. So here we're thinking of things like an online competition, hackathons. It's an opportunity to benefit from trial licenses with some of our strategic partners, perhaps even win some swag or some professionalization time. And we'll run this week on week. And it will be led by us in the first instance, but I think the hope is and the intention is by trying to establish this as a community, they'll then run that themselves, and they may actually then start putting on the online competitions back to the strategic partners. So that's one of the things I just really want to touch on today. I suppose the other thing is around one of the principles about making sure that these are real world applications. And we can't do that unless we can get the strategic partners using kind of real world examples and indeed data, and trying to jump through some of the IG hoops to do that is to think about that early enough in the process and novel ways of getting around that.
Right, Victoria, thank you very much for that. Nacho, I'm going to hand over to you. So please do introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. But your question, should you choose to accept or not, I'm hoping you will accept, is from a design perspective, what are some of the challenging and not so challenging moments you experienced as the Monstarlab team, and how did you overcome these?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the question, Suki. For everyone in the call, I'm Nacho. I'm a senior product designer at Monstarlab, based in the London office. And I've been working on this project over the last couple of months with Victoria, Sophie, and the rest of the team to hopefully get it over the line. It's so close now, which is really, really exciting. And to your question, Suki, of what are some of the learnings and exciting things from this design point of view and user experience that have happened, right? I mean, one of the learnings that I had is about the stakeholder complexity that Victoria was talking about. I think that was like one of the bigger challenges of this project. You are talking to a lot of people that might have different points of view, different objectives, different goals, and then managing all those successfully and filtering all their feedback into a useful product is quite a challenge. Another one of the ones that at the beginning it was very challenging, but I think we've grown to enjoy these constraints, are like the technical constraints that we were put. So at the beginning, of course, we are Monstarlab, we're a technology company, we can build websites all day. So we thought, okay, this center of excellence is going to live in a dedicated site. At least we could like kind of so we can control a bit more what we want to do, and we can add some more like a more feature-rich experience, right? So we're talking about like searching and advanced searching and filtering and rating, etc., and the features that kind of like would make the whole experience of searching for courses a bit easier, right? We would also have like an advanced CMS that would allow people to do that very, very quickly, and we would be able to create pages almost like in a blink of an eye, right? But what we found out after digging a bit more into kind of like the requirements that we actually need to do is that we actually need to do use an existing NHS platform, a knowledge sharing site, which has a lot of has some more technical range, right? So some things like filtering and advanced searching and rating were kind of like out the window. So we have to kind of pare down the features and start thinking, okay, what do we really need to create an experience that people want to access while taking into account also different constraints that we're having because of this platform, right? to be honest, from our organizational point of view, I think from the NHS it made a lot of sense, right? We didn't want to create something from scratch that would need to be developed and maintained separately. We wanted to use something that already existed. So we slowly kind of like started to get attached to it. I almost like these constraints. So even though it has some clear limitations, it also allowed us to move much faster because we were not building anything from scratch. Everything was done through a MS, which I mean, it was a bit limited. Let's just say that, but it did allow us to create pages, etc., etc. Another one of the constraints that came up is that, of course, with this CMS, everything is very manual. Every single element in the page and every single page is to be created manually, which also added this constraint from a design and user experience point of view of the person building and maintaining this quite large platform, right? If every single piece of content needs to be added manually, then we need to make sure that every single piece of content is important and need to reduce the number of pieces of content as much as possible. So I mean, we fully embraced it and went through several limitations. I think slowly but surely we actually ended up with an experience that we think that is going to delight some of our users. We also had to do some things that are like in the design world are like kind of like no-nos, right? Like adding buttons and images and stuff like that, which I'm still not fully comfortable with. But I think that we ended up with something that is working really, really well. And of course, thank you to the team, to Victoria, Sophie, Really, and the rest, because they were, I mean, they handled the project great, and also they were super, super useful from a user experience point of view because they were already familiar with this platform, and they knew how other people have kind of like hacked it to create an experience that is like above and beyond what someone would expect from something like this. So that was amazing. And then from a design point of view, of course, I'm super excited about hopefully the next steps, right? And as Victoria has said, like how can we introduce gamification, reviews? How can we make this content like more engagement and people to want to come back and keep engaging with us throughout? One of the risks is that we're going to have a bit of trouble kind of like really digging down into the analytics and understanding what really is happening, but hopefully through interviews, through talking to our stakeholders and our users, we will be able to come up with something that is going to be a great help for the NHS as a whole.
Nacho, thank you for that. And in a way, I do empathize with you, but I'm also in awe because you wanted to fly the fighter jet, but we gave you a railway track, and I think you've done very well there. But I think one of the points to echo to the audience is the NHS is not one homogeneous organization. The NHS doesn't always embrace the latest technology, but that should never be a barrier for organizations such as Monstarlab to provide their expertise, because it's only up to last year where we were beginning to phase out fax machines in the NHS. We were the largest consumer of fax machines. And I know if I meet some of you in the Monstarlab office, you're actually going to remind me of my age and tell me what is a fax machine. But yes, we did used to use those things. So the point here is, I think, Nacho, the Monstarlab team, what you've done and where this could go, is you've started on the railway track. I remain optimistic we'll get to the fighter jet at some point. Alex, over to you next. So once again, please do introduce yourself. And then the question to you, Alex, is you have that enormous task of managing this thing called Analyst X on a day-to-day basis. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about Analyst X and what are some of the things you hope to achieve in 2 to 3 years' time?
Absolutely, and thank you, Suki, and thank you for the opportunity for me to come and speak to you about the Analyst X, and then also what is our strategy, what's our plan, and then the development of what we're going to be looking at in future. So for those of you who doesn't know about Analyst X or have not heard about it, we started when pandemic hit us in March 2020. A lot of organisation and people has been asking NHS England about, have you got any data available Have you got any analysis or report or product available to support us for decision making on how do we fight the pandemic? How do we then help people to actually moving on into securing their day-to-day life, and then also helping them to actually move for some decision making about when to lock down, when to, like what happened to the diseases, etc. So we created this community envisaging there are only about 50 people to be joining us. And we started to look at, what do the people need? Is it just the dashboard of the product? Is it about just the data that they wanted to take away and then do their analysis? And we find out there are a lot of people who has been in the data and analytics community are actually not very familiar with the technique, the technology, and then also in particular communication between senior leadership and also the analytics or the technical user in data and analytics. So we started to build this community facilitating, helping people to understand what is in there. What does forecasting mean? What does using algorithms to build a machine learning model in R mean, in Python mean? And what are the technology available? Like, are we still using or building our report in Excel? Are we, should we be moving on to some more freeware, like it's been mentioned recently in the Goldacre reports about using more of a freeware in R and Python, etc. So we started to establish some of the learning modules using the 5 different families that Victoria has mentioned earlier. So a bit of my background before I go on to a little bit further about AnalystX. So I have been working in the NHS for the last 20 years, from a full stack development to database administration, and now leading in AnalystX for the different builds of the community, and then also building the new framework for what we're going to be looking at in the AnalystX development for 2022 and 2023. Based on the collaboration or the values that we wanted to use, or cashing in the values that we have set up right at the beginning, the 5 key area is collaborative, leadership, innovative, trusted, and impactful. How do we build those into our communities to connect with everyone and empower everyone in that communities in there? So what we have done in the initial stage, before I moved on to the 2 to 3 years plan, is to establish some of the community, like the data science community, working with some of the leading NHS users to learn about, or provide a framework for them to learn about what data science means. The questions right at the beginning is, what is data science? How is it going to help the health and care sector? What does it mean in NHS? Do we have any data scientists? So using these area, or using these method, or using these basis, we go around and then have a look at, like how we can actually bring data science to upgrade or to professionalize our workforce. And then moving on to how do we link up with the different community, like the Python community, our community, and then also existing community externally. How do we then link it up and then join forces with them to put them under the banner or the category of the data science? As you can probably imagine, there are quite a lot of community out there, and part of my work and part of my job is to linking them together, finding out what are they currently delivering, what are they developing, and how is that going to be helped the NHS to speed up in the process of learning the different area and the different elements within the data science, data visualization, and then also applied evaluation. Given all of those different communities that we have built, we are also looking at, within each of those communities, we started to actually build some of the area, which is linking to the new frameworks that we are currently working on at the moment, such as we're going to be rebranding or restarting our AnalystX, building a new framework using the 3 different areas, the knowledge sharing area or the documentation area. Some of you working or been working with the NHS will know we love working in silo. We love to keep documentation ourselves. We don't share a lot of information around. Even though your documentation is perfect, you keep it within your organization because just in case you didn't actually get to, you know, like, or get to the point of that's perfect document. But what we wanted to do in Analyst Text is to actually break down that silo. If you've got a best practice, if you are, you know, like working on a policy, if you're working in the governance of a particular product or area, we wanted you to share that. And then by joining that together, we wanted you to be able to actually share that document with the wider organization and the team across the NHS. The second one is, as Victoria mentioned, there are so many different learning material externally. There are so many different ways of learning, whether it's via textbook, whether it's via the online video, or do people wanted more interaction with other people by joining some hackathon event, learning it through networking, mentoring, buddying system. And this is something that through our community we are building at the moment and setting up a learning zone to help people. In aid of leading that onto an academy, and there is Charter Institute for different professions such as accountants, such as law, such as marketing, etc. There is no such a thing as a charter accountant in data and analytics. We are exploring, is it possible to do this? Can we set a level of whether, you know, like data analytics can be measured? How are the, you know, like professionalizations can help with the speed up with the health and care system? And this is what we're looking at, multiple level of access to different learning material, then leading on to examination, accreditation, and then building a sustainable workforce within the Analyst Text area. And finally, we will be looking at interactive zone. Some people like to just look at reading textbook and learn something. Some people like to go on to, it becomes, you know, like more active and helping other. And this is where that interactive zones that we're going to be looking at building, setting up these community. People can drop in to answer questions when people have got difficulties and help or requiring some help. And people who are more in the expert level will want to go in and help others to actually, you know, bring them up to speed of the works that is needed to do. And this is something that we're currently working on in building that interactive zone. But one of the things that we have been working on with our community, and there were questionnaires that came out, what is the most useful way to help others? And we bring in something, what we called Hexi time in as a child before. And this is like if you donate an hour to help somebody and you get an hour back. Because as you probably know in your CV or in your job application, we're all perfect in every single aspect of the work. But when it comes to it, are you actually an expert? Can you actually learn something new? And throughout our survey questioning with other colleagues, we always find out there is always a new area and new elements that we wanted to improve ourselves and learn with our, you know, like learned as we progressed in our job. So this is some areas that we will be reintroducing and relinking and then resharing and then in our community to actually bring people up to speed, to learn about what is the new or the latest technology available working with our strategic partners. And then also what are the new method is going to be used? And, you know, what is beyond data science and data engineering in managing your data and exploring your data and manipulating your data? And, you know, what are the new technology out there to actually help senior users or senior decision maker to understand how do you read the report? How do you navigate the report? How do you, you know, like how do you filter what you needed within the 5 seconds in between meetings? How do you actually use that? And this is something that we'll be working on, and then also we'll be looking at. Ultimately, what we wanted to do is to create a lively area, a safe space for people to go in and practice, to learn, to exercise, and then also to communicate with other people. Not to be judged about whether you are on a specific band or on a lower grade, and then, you know, you can't contribute in certain area. And this is what we wanted to do in Analyst X, providing a safe area for people to give that leadership, or, you know, or providing the leadership framework so they can lead on certain area, explore the new area, and becomes and bringing the innovations to it. And this is something that we really wanted to utilize the Analyst Text community for.
Alex, thank you very much for that, and reminding people what a large, there's no better way of describing it, forest Analyst X is, with all these different areas and features and then how you're actually working with communities to move forward the data and analytics agenda within the NHS. Panel members, thank you very much for your presentations and answering my questions. I'm now going to open up to the audience in the last few minutes that we have. So let me see if there's anything that's come up in the comment box. Tiago, equally, if you come across anything, feel free just to shout.
Hello. Yeah, for sure. First, I would like to thanks everyone for the participation. It was very nice topics. And I wanted actually to ask how important is the user experience and the design thinking being for this project?
I guess I'll jump in as the user experience representative. I mean, I think it's, of course, as in any digital product, user experience and design thinking it's key to first build the experience and then, of course, provide an experience that people want to use. I think it's been now, over probably 20 years since the internet started actually becoming a place that is user-centered. And now people expect products that work from the beginning, that work well, that are intuitive to use. And if we don't hit that bar from the start, that means that people are just not going to come back. They're not making the effort to understand something that is hard to understand, right? And that's where design thinking and putting the user in the center of everything and really understanding what they need is key to the success of any product nowadays.
Tiago, is that okay if I just jump in with answering one of the, follow up with the question as well? So what we have find quite often with the NHS users or what I've been working with the communities on is that, they want to come in and then, each person has got different preference of working or learning or developing themselves. Some people still prefer books. Some people prefer printed notes. Some people prefer the interaction, as I mentioned, a webinar online or chatting with somebody. So I think what we have been trying to do in AnalystX is provided multiple channel or different ways of access for users through the different schemes, such as Victoria has been leading on the Population Health Data and Analytics Center of Excellence. It's one of the method of accessing learning material within our community. And we have got the competency-based learning and development portals that we are currently working on and building at the moment. So based on the job roles of each of the individuals, they will be able to look at what do they need to do and then how do they need to progress. And then also keeping maintaining what we have originally when we started with the 5 different families under the Analytics Learning Exchange. And that will give us people a quick overview to access the information or what they needed to learn in each of the particular area. So one of the key areas that, like you mentioned about, what about that user experience and user design? Often we engage with our communities to find out, is it useful for you? Is it, is the material, interesting enough for you? Would you like to add some information to it? How do we improve our product? What do we need it to do? But one of the key areas that is going to be something that we'll be looking at in the next couple of months or even next couple of years, it's not just about, what we are currently providing. It's making sure that the learning and development is not a additional curriculum in your as part of your job role. Is to make it becomes part of your job, to make it and people will be able to actually free up sometimes to go in and learn, and then providing that valuable information about each of the experience for us, and then so we can improve our product and working with like of Monstarlab to actually create a much fuller or much better curriculums to actually help with the foundation of what we are trying to build.
Yeah, but I think we have time for just one more question. So
perfect. Yeah, thanks for Alex and Nacho. And so if we have time for one last question, I imagine there was a lot of partners working together in this project. How was managed to keep everyone engaged?
Yeah, that's yours, Victoria.
Yeah, I can jump in. Yeah, there's lots of different stakeholders in this, and from the kind of the policy side to the people that are already kind of putting lots of great learning material out there, to the strategic partners. And that kind of one of the slides that I showed hopefully shows the complexity of bringing everybody in. I think it was about establishing who all those stakeholders were, what they were contributing already, what their interests may be, and then engaging them early but regularly. And so we created 2 different kind of roundtables. One that was a roundtable that was kind of the more people that you'd engage with more frequently, I guess, and then the wider group once you'd kind of established some of the main principles, etc. And they would be kind of your sense check then, sense check and challenge. And then those groups will be maintained and probably turn into our accreditation groups as well. They've been fundamental to getting them on board, but also kind of navigating our way around this kind of complex environment that is the NHS, but also that's wider than that in terms of health and care. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to that.
Engage. And then that's very important. So I think in the interest of time, once again, my sincere thanks to everyone, Tiago, you as well. I hope it's been a helpful session for colleagues at Monstarlab just to understand the complexity of the NHS. Please feel free to reach out to Victoria, Alex, and Nacho if there's more you'd like to learn about the project. Or in fact, if you'd like to sign up for any of them, we're quite open. It's not just an NHS community. It's for anyone interested in data and analytics. Thank you very much, everyone, once again. Have a lovely day or evening, wherever you are. Take care then.